Now I look to Mhairi Black MP to close the case for the proposition.
Well, thank you very much. I have to apologise that I'm loaded with a cold just now, so if I have to rub my nose, it's not that I'm allergic to rubbish or listening to it. It's a big privilege to be here tonight. My mum would have loved for me to have went to Oxford, but I'm not really sure that this is exactly what she had in mind. And I just hope that tonight I perform slightly better than the Scotland team did on Tuesday there when we get gubbed. But the truth is that although it's a great thing to be here and to be speaking in this debating hall, I would much rather be up in Scotland just now at the SNP party conference, which opened today. I'd much rather be going to sleep tonight in my own bed. But the reason I was down here is because I had a Working Pensions Committee meeting about the saga that is Concentric's tax credits. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because one thing that I actually agree with that's been said tonight is this debate isn't about whether you agree with policy or not. This debate is about competence. It's about, can we have confidence in this government? And today in that committee, it's just one example of why I have zero confidence in this government. Now, you might be aware of the tax credits issue where single mothers, quite often single parents, have went to the bank to discover that they have had their tax credit stopped. They've had no letters of warning, and the letters that they have had have always said that they're living with another person that they've not declared. Quite often, these people are dead. Quite often, these people are living across the landing. In fact, the most common one in Scotland is that we have people who are living with an RS McCall. Now, anyone from Scotland here tonight knows that an RS McCall is a corner shop as common as Greg's Bakers. And at no point did HMRC realise, wait a minute, this guy RS McCall's getting about a bit. At no point. And today, what happened, although we can make light of the fact that this has been an absolute travesty, the real fact of the matter is that, see, when governments mess up, it affects people. It affects people's lives. And today, in front of the committee, we had Sarah Broom. Now, she's a woman who has no hand. She has reduced mobility in her other hand. She has a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. She only discovered that she lost her tax credits when she went to the bank account. She tried to phone up HMRC and Concentrics, and she spent a total of 19 hours on the phone to them. Now, this isn't a free number. This is a number that charges you. And this is someone on tax credits. This woman, Sarah, broke down in tears today in front of the committee. You can go online and you can watch it. She broke down in tears because for months, for almost 8 weeks, she had nothing in her pocket. She looked at her children and she was crying because she didn't know how she was going to feed them. Another woman, Marie Crowley, she spoke of how she had to go to food banks. It's something that John spoke about earlier on. Why are we living in a society where food banks are considered normal? We're talking about a Victorian policy here. But I think the biggest or the most illuminating thing about this is that you could look at the Concentric saga and you could look at the fact that this company admitted themselves that they only got it right 5% of the time. 95% of mandatory reconsiderations were approved. 5% of the time they got it right. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because today at the committee, we discovered that there was an hour's difference between this company having that contract renewed and having it taken away. Mrs May's government gave an hour's difference between giving this shambolic company another round at ruining people's lives. Now, I know that some people would like to say that incompetence, it was just a one-off, but the truth is that incompetence is rampant throughout our welfare system right now. And for the last 6 years, it has caused people uncontrollable pain, a chronic pain that is living in every community in this place. Now, I'm actually, I was amazed earlier on when Julian was talking about how he's proud that Theresa May's government are going to go after big business and things. This is the kind of rhetoric that we've heard lots and lots of governments say, and both Labour and Conservative have been guilty of not delivering that promise. Now, the idea that Theresa May's government and that the Conservatives are against big business is ridiculous, because every time that I know for a fact SNP have put forward an amendment to close tax loopholes, to close the Mayfair loophole, it's been voted down every single time. And instead what we do is we batter into single mothers, we batter into the disabled, we cut £30 off their benefits, we batter into the low paid, the unemployed. We say that we can't give people pensions even though they've been paying their whole lives for it. And as if this isn't enough reason not to have confidence in this government, you turn to the saga that is Brexit. And it's something that many of the speakers have talked about earlier. Elizabeth put very eloquently earlier on about how much drama has been caused. Now, it's easy for Julian to sit there and say that, oh, it's only 4 months, we've still got time. Well, the reality is that, see, while that 4 months is going on, we've got people who are losing money left, right and centre because of it. We've seen how much the pound has dropped. In fact, a Fraser of Alander report found that in the most pessimistic model that we would see from Brexit, Scottish GDP would fall by 5% with a loss of 80,000 jobs. They said that the most optimistic view would be a loss of 30,000 jobs. What does that say of the state of affairs in this country if it's seen as optimistic that you're about to lose 30,000 jobs? Now, the other thing that has struck me tonight is the incredible level of hypocrisy. And with the greatest of respect, to hear someone sitting in the House of Lords speaking about democracy is something that is just hard to stomach. Because if this government was really serious about democracy, if they were serious about delivering on that Brexit promise of bringing more control back home, bringing more control to a lower level, why the hell then is Theresa May planning on cutting down on the number of seats in the House of Commons in favour of stuffing the House of Lords with more people? It's incredible that nobody is questioning this when Theresa May claims that she's democratic. Now, I have to say that one of the other things that I've wanted to get across tonight is that what is most worrying about this Brexit saga is the rise in hatred, fear, xenophobia and racism. Because all of a sudden, I'm sure many people in here will have experienced it themselves, somehow people now think that racist and bigoted views are somehow now legitimate. They're somehow now a wee bit more acceptable. Figures released today showed that hate crime is up by 41% in England and Wales in the month since the vote. Because the truth is that the mask of the Conservatives and Theresa May's Conservative government of being the party of the common people has slipped. And when we saw the rhetoric coming out of the Conservative policy, the Conservative conference, we saw the ugly, xenophobic and nationalist side to the Conservative Party. Now, immediately, I know that there's going to be many people crying hypocrisy and how can someone from the SNP talk about nationalism? Well, I'll tell you why. Let me explain. Nationalism, a nationalist, is a word that I have never, ever described myself by. It's something that I have never connected with, and it's actually my biggest frustration in politics is that people just assume that I'm some kind of nationalist because I'm in the SNP. Because for me, independence is not some emotional blood DNA kind of argument from the heart. For me, it's a logical and strategic one to deliver the kind of society that I want to see. I view the SNP as being the best route to getting that. The minute we do get independence, my vote's up for grabs, the same way everybody else's is. So what am I talking about when we say nationalism? Because during that independence campaign, I was proud to be part of an inclusive, diverse, pro-migration independence campaign. I was proud of that. And the fact that there have been no reported rises in hate crime, in fact, it's lowered in Scotland, is a sign that we have got the right attitude in Scotland, where we are welcoming people with open arms. So let me say, beyond belief, beyond any kind of doubt, The SNP and myself do not care where you are from. We don't care where you were born. The SNP call it civic nationalism. Some people call it culturalism. I just call it being a good and decent person. I don't care where you come from. But continually, it is us that are labelled as divisive, as wanting to tear things apart. Now, compare that to what we hear from the UK. We've already heard about the foreign workers lists. We've already heard that the rhetoric of foreigners and immigrants coming over here. And it's worthwhile remembering, and there's a cracking quote, and I can't remember who it's by, but it says, fascism doesn't come in with stomping boots. It turns up as your friend. It says it will restore your pride. It says it will give you a job. It will clean up your neighbourhood. It says it will look after you. Fascism creeps up on us. And all that I can say, and I mean this seriously and with the greatest of respect, the rhetoric that I heard from that Conservative Party conference can only be considered and must be considered the first steps down that slippery slope into somewhere that we don't want to be. On you go. Is Barack Obama a fascist?
Yeah, he's introduced more stringent legislation.
And I disagree with that also. You know, it doesn't matter who's coming up with it. I think it is abhorrent to suggest that we should have some kind of divisiveness between workers based on where they were born. Now, we hear this rhetoric of British jobs for British people. Now, I have to say that, in fact, I spend most of my time arguing for the government to provide jobs, but it should be providing jobs for people in Britain, not British people. And when we talk, earlier on, Julian said that we've heard people, what was it, weapons of war are being created within the Labour Party. Well, Michael Fallon says that he will launch 150 new cadet units into state schools because he says that militarisation will instil British values. Now, to me, that sounds like weaponising people. Now, Akala from The Guardian said very eloquently, and I would urge anyone to go and read the video, that history is often distorted. We often see and we are taught, and I think everybody knows this from existence, that we are told that these British values as such, they're the things that have progressed our society. They're the great social movements we've had. It's because we have British values. But Akala quite rightly points out that that's not true. Because what has happened when you look through history is that many of the progressive campaigns and the changes that we've seen have actually been in spite of the elite, in spite of the people who were in power. So that's where the question has to lie now. Because he says that if people bond and if people feel a certain nationalism, that's fine. It might not be for me, but if it's for you, cool. But what do you want that to mean? What do you want that real effect on the world to be? Do you want it to be something that's divisive, oppressive, that separates people? Or do you want it to be something that's inclusive and about fact and about argument and how we can best make our society better? Now, just to finish off, I just want to say that the only xenophobia that I see and have seen in the last few months is from Theresa May's government, from the rhetoric coming from the right-wing side of this country. Yes?
Did the lady then just decide in favour of the motion, constantly deriding European countries to make that point? Oh, look how bad it is in Poland, we're going there. Oh, look how bad it is in that country, we're going there. That sounds a little bit xenophobic as well, doesn't it?
How? But how's that xenophobic? No, because what? It's a fair point to highlight that we should be learning lessons from history about what can happen when we start to cause this divisiveness. I mean, history is littered with governments, with the powerful, with rich, who have continually abused and damaged ordinary people in society and then turned and pointed the finger of blame to foreigners. History is littered with it. So just to finish off, fundamentally, I have no confidence in this government because it has no care for the direction that it is taking this country in, and it has no care for who it damages on the way. And I urge you to vote for no confidence.